This episode of the podcast is brought to you by 88 Frames Media. Look, we get it. You have an amazing idea for a podcast or a video. You know how it should look, you know how it should feel, and you know the amazing ways that it's going to connect to your audience. You just don't know how to make it come to life. That's where 88 Frames Media comes in. 88 Frames Media handles everything from podcast editing and creation, videos and reels, social media, website management, and more. They even consult with you to ensure that you get the best version of your idea. With over 10 years of experience and a variety of satisfied customers, let 88 Frames Media handle your digital presence today. Visit 88framesmedia.com for more information. That's 88framesmedia.com.
Once upon a time, way back on Earth 1, some geeks wanted a way to combine a love of comics and Jesus. Sanctum Sanctorum was born.
However, just like Fox and the DCEU, that universe reached its end.
Flash forward to Earth 2, a vision reborn.
An assembly of Avengers,
Discussing, reviewing, and rating comic book movies.
connecting them to culture and Christ.
And maybe learning something along the way.
This is the Sanctum Sanctorum podcast. This was your idea. This was your baby. I'm just resurrecting it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the inaugural, the flagship, the first of phase one of the Sanctum Sanctorum podcast. We are super excited. We are so pumped to do this again. We're excited for you to hear us and agree with us, disagree with us, and talk with us. We're really pumped to do this. I know I'm really pumped. Joey, are you as pumped as I am?
I'm ecstatic, man. I remember, just for our audiences, we did have this show in a version in another world, in another time, in another life, with different responsibilities, way less children, and the world was a very different place. I have to admit. But we came together. We said, there was an idea, and we should really resurrect that idea. So we're excited to bring Sanctum Sanctorum back to life, to shove what little energy we have back into the skin of finding Christ within comic culture and seeing where those two collide. But Chris, I mean, you and I haven't caught up in a spell. Like, how are you, man?
I mean, it's been a crazy year with for new listeners and old. And since the last time we've been able to do this, I have had a son, and he is about a year and change old, and he's starting to think about walking and
That's when it's over.
reading a lot, but reading a lot of, thankfully, Marvel books and DC books that we've collected for his enjoyment. So pointing out who Ant-Man is and Spider-Man and Batman and Wonder Woman has been a very exciting fatherly bonding thing for me.
Love it.
So that's been a big deal. And I mean, the only other thing that's really been going on is the insane amount of content that has come out from Marvel, from DC, from everyone else. It's been crazy.
Yeah, we had this show, like we said, there was an iteration of this where it was just podcast form, and you're going to hear a little bit more about that. But we stopped doing that in that version in that way in 2017. And the amount of content that has just come out since 2017, which was only 7 years ago, we're never going to run out of things to cover.
Oh no! When I was putting together the list of, like, here's everything that we could possibly cover, there's years worth of things, and that's only if they stopped making things right now.
Right.
If nothing else came out from here till forever, we'd still have years of content, and that's not to mention the next phases and James Gunn bringing up the new DCU, and all this stuff is crazy.
Which is a great segue into, we should really talk about what this show is and what our purpose is. When we say Sanctum Sanctorum podcast, what is it that we're after, Chris?
Well, we're both huge geeks. We both love comic book movies, comic books. We love the stories that can be told through that format of comics, and good versus evil, and the gray area that can sometimes fall into. we both are guys that have grown up in the church, and we've gone through changes in regards to our beliefs and our faith, and how we see that present in our lives. And it seems like a natural thing to take these two passions that we have and see how they collide and see how they can influence each other, and see where social and spiritual truths can be found in you know tights and capes.
And one of the things I really like about your perspective that you bring to this show is, yes, you've got a rich history within the comics in a way that I don't, that I'm sort of
Hmm.
catching up to. But when it comes to the spiritual connection, which, we talk about the good things in the movies, we talk about the bad things, and then we try to find where there's spiritual content. Chris, you never just grab the low hanging fruit. Your perspective is just always so unique, but it's always so pervasive into, some of the motivations of the characters, even the writing and things like that. So that's what I love about doing the show with you. It's like you have to think a little bit about this stuff. It's
Yeah,
there, but if you just spend a little bit of time, you'll find it.
it's super easy to say, and I think that both of us were probably a little guilty of this in the previous incarnation of this show. Of if we do a Superman movie, well, Superman is the Jesus figure.
He's
Well,
Jesus.
yeah, I mean, that it's not like that's wrong, but there's so much other aspects to those stories and that character that you can pull from. And I think that you go into some really deep detail and find things that I don't even know that I would find. And I don't know if that's your brain just working in overtime, or if that's your history of being a leader in the church, which has been much more than I have.
It's
um
called ADHD.
well, yeah, there's that aspect as well. Certainly, definitely that aspect as well.
Definitely that. Yeah, so when we said let's pull this idea together again, it wasn't just audio. We wanted video aspects of all of this, because some of the passion and some of the missed opportunity, honestly, from the last iteration was seeing ourselves react to some of the wildly different ways we see this stuff, and that was something that I wanted to definitely capture. Obviously, too, in the last 7 years, I've definitely grown as a creative, and doing
Mhm.
video is really really special to me. I'm really excited about bringing this video aspect to the show as well.
Absolutely, I think it's going to be a great medium, and I think it'll be good for an audience as well, to be able to choose, like, oh, this is something I can listen to, this is something I can watch. There's multiple ways to interact, and I think that's something that'll be really important as a show and as creatives. And yeah, I'm just really excited to be doing this again, and to find new mediums, and getting the audience to see how often I have to roll my eyes and stifle my pervasive anger at some of the things you say.
I will say a Chris North eye roll is a currency in and of itself. And when I get paid in it, oh man, it is euphoria. Just getting you to just hate me is sometimes pure joy.
You know, you're probably not the only person that feels that way. And I don't know what that says about me, except that I have a deep amount of influence, and probably an overabundance of opinions on all these things.
Or an anger issue.
Well, yeah, or an anger issue, which also stems from the, large level of passion that I have for these characters, these stories, and
Yes.
wanting to see so many people love them as much as I do.
And when we both have that love, we both have that passion that we bring to not only the movies and our faith, but also this content. And we really had to think, like, if we're gonna start this off, if we're gonna hit an episode one, what is the best way to kick off this new way, this new series, this fresh idea? How do we kick that off? And so, Chris, do you want to reveal what our upcoming episode one movie is?
Well,
You can say no.
no, I'm happy to kick it off. We both love the fall season. We both love October, Halloween, the whole atmosphere that it brings. We also both love Batman. So we thought, what better way to kick this off than with Batman: The Long Halloween? So episode one
Amazing.
will be from the Tomorrowverse, the animated two-part film, Batman: The Long Halloween, and I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about it and to share some of my thoughts. And it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a really good time.
And you, as the listener, go and watch that before you listen to our episode so you have some context of what we're talking about. We won't always give you a heads up as to what we're covering next because sometimes we want to be able to pivot and be very loose with what we're approaching. But definitely for episode one, go watch Batman: The Long Halloween. You need parts 1 and 2. It's a complete story.
Hmm.
And trust me, we are going to disagree on a little bit, but it's one of my favorite comic lines, and I'm so excited that it's episode 1. And one of the things that we do, we talk about good stuff, we talk about bad stuff, we talk about Jesus stuff, but then we have to rate these films.
And it's
Uh,
sorry, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was going to say, we have a unique way of doing that.
It's very easy to, give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It's very easy to say like, rated, a 6 out of 10, a 9 out of 10, any of that stuff. We wanted to find a way that was more unique to our passions and more unique to our show to rate these movies. So like I said, we're both huge fans of Batman, and there have been a lot of people that have played Batman on TV and in movies.
Indeed.
And so, do you want to, since I got to reveal the movie, do you want to reveal our rating scale and how it
Sure,
breaks
we've got a
down?
Batman. We got a Batman rating scale. And what I like about this Batman rating scale, I don't know if I've said this to you, Chris, but what I like is that everyone can connect to the rating scale. You might disagree with maybe some of the midpoints of how we've rated this, but I think overall everybody sort of agrees like the goods are good and the bads are bad. And so when we rate something flawlessly, there are no errors, there's nothing but greatness coming out of this movie, this project. It's a Kevin Conroy. Kevin Conroy, of course, was the animated voice of Batman for Batman the Animated Series and many of the DCEU animated projects. He did pass away a few years ago, and we miss him dearly. But when something is flawless, it's a Conroy.
Absolutely.
When something's great, it's a Keaton. Of course, Michael Keaton playing Batman in the 1989 Batman. Batman Returns. He also reprised his role in The Flash, which we'll have to talk about at some point. But
Listen, Michael
Michael
Keaton,
Keaton is
whatever problems you might have with that, it's not Michael Keaton.
it's not with Michael Keaton, and he's a great Batman. Moving down the scale, we've got Christian Bale. He's a good Batman. I personally find him to be a better Bruce Wayne, and that's a dynamic that we should talk about as we discuss Batman projects, that there's a duality to the role.
Absolutely.
But we rate things from Batman, and Christian Bale's Batman within the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy is very good. There's some issues, but it's very good. And that brings us to the newest edition of our Batman scale. Again, 7 years have gone by since the last time we did this, and there's a new Batman on the scene. Chris, who is just an okay Batman?
Well, he sparkles when he's on the screen, to be perfectly honest, because it's none other than
I see what you did there.
yeah, he's none other than Robert Pattinson, who has been in the most recent live action Batman film, The Batman. And I gotta say, he took me by surprise. As good as he was, I was not expecting much, and I really liked him specifically as Batman. So he
Yeah,
was not as good as the previous incarnations, but he was pretty okay comparatively, better than some.
he's more okay. He's more okay than the rest we're going to talk about.
Yes.
I'd like to see where else he takes this character. Everyone else on that scale, I'm only realizing this right now, everyone else on that scale has had multiple iterations
Mhm.
and attempts at playing the character, whereas Pattinson has had one up until the date of this recording. So hopefully he gets another chance with Matt Reeves to be able to develop that character a little bit more,
Mhm.
and maybe he can move up in our scale. But for right now, he's okay.
He is
He's
A-okay
not
with
bad.
me.
And similar to the A-OK, I actually think I like him better than you do, But let's talk about this. The next fair rating for a Batman is Ben Affleck.
Yeah, Batfleck, to
It
me,
didn't blow me away.
Batfleck and Pattinson can be kind of interchangeable a little bit.
I
You know,
agree.
I think there would have to be one like major tipping point to go from one to the other, either, good or bad.
Sure.
Because I think that Affleck did a good job with what he had to work with. To be fair, part of it is not just the look, but it's also, the script and the effects and the story
It's the
all have
voice.
things to do with it. The voice, I kind of like that electronic
It's it's all
kind of
right.
warbliness to
I
it. I kind of
I
liked it.
I like I like the age of Batfleck. I like the seasoned, more Dark Knight Returns Batman that they were going for. They did not hit it
Yeah,
though.
that's the thing I didn't love, where it's like, I've been Batman for 20 years. You've been Batman for 20 years, and only
Mm,
now other supers have started showing their face. I mean,
right. And you're gonna pick a fight with Comic Jesus?
well,
I don't think
Comic
so.
Jesus, who's also 20 years younger than you are, apparently. Like, this is silly. Like, you're picking on the Flash. He's like 19. Like, come on.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. And obviously, we're not rating the Justice League or the Justice League, but his superhero being I'm rich or his superpower.
yeah, yeah. So that's why
Anyway,
he's
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 fair,
fair. Given what he had to work with, he did a fine job. It was a fair Batman. Now,
but he's not as bad as our next one.
Kilmer, Val Kilmer from Batman Forever in the 90s. His rating is just kind of meh. Like, it's not. It's almost like it's forgettable. Where
Absolutely.
it's meh. It's not. It's
Well,
not so
perfect example.
good.
Perfect example. You and I were talking about this. I forgot to include him.
That's how forgettable he was, because
It's
he's
forgettable.
in a movie where he's outshined by the other actors, the other
Everyone
characters.
else.
He just kind of disappears in that movie compared to everybody else in it. And this isn't even
Yep.
saying whether the movie is good or bad, but he just is the least interesting part of it.
Yep. And so when we give something a Kilmer, it's like, I'm not going to remember this once we stop and hit stop on the record button. Like this is a forgettable, unimpressive, not leaving a mark
And
piece
I
of
just
art.
don't care. Like, it's one
Yeah.
of those, like, we'll talk about it because we have to talk about it, but if that's what I end up giving it, it's gonna be like, this is a chore to get through now.
Yeah. Now, which is funny for our next one when we rate something in Adam West. Adam West, of course, is the 1966 Batman. Is that the
Hmm.
year? Look at me. I did my homework.
Batman the TV series, and then the Batman movie that followed the same continuity.
Right. That's with the Batcopter, right?
Yep, Batcopter, the bat, bat
Shark
hyphen
repellent.
everything, shark
Yep.
repellent.
And
Some
so
days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
we gave it if we give it a West, it's so bad it's comically good. It's entertaining. It's got a soft spot in your heart for nostalgia.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean it's good. It's just it's campy. It's a product of its time and it's what it is. But there's no expectation that if we gave it a West, it was going to be good.
And it's one of those things that if you've ever been in one of those situations where you recommend a movie or a TV show to someone because you have always loved it, you grew up watching it, or you have a memory of watching it with a particular person or time in your life, and
It's my
then they
free
watch
Willy.
it and it's like, what did you just make me sit through? And it's like, how do you not see that this is the greatest thing ever? That's what that rating is kind of for, is the things that are like, I love it, but no one else loves it.
I did that to my wife watching Homeward Bound. It was like, this is the greatest film about animals ever. And then we finished it, and she's like, what have you done to me?
Yeah. Yeah, I've run into some of those where I get so
Yeah.
excited, where it's like, you don't understand the treat that you're about to experience. It's like, you just stole 2 hours from me.
And I'm never getting them back.
Never.
Never. And that brings us to our final bat rating, which is, of course, George Clooney.
who
George Clooney
has appeared
had
twice as
he's
Batman.
he's appeared twice and he's apologized. He has apologized for his role.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Well, he apologized for the role, but then he came back in the Flash. Now, not as Batman, but
Sure.
he came back just as Bruce Wayne, which I didn't always
Fan
think he was
service.
terrible at Bruce Wayne specifically, but
Well, okay, so that's a great example of a really good actor who could do something compelling with that dual nature. I think he would have been a really great Bruce Wayne. Joel Schumacher's Execution was aimed to be a comic book at a time when movies were trending towards more serious dark tones
mhm.
within cinema, and that thing just I mean, Schwarzenegger as Freeze is just comically awful.
It's comically awful, but he seems to be the only one who knows what kind of movie he was in.
He knew, yeah, he understood the assignment. Everybody else took it way too seriously.
Yeah, he's the only one who was like, "Oh, we're making a cartoon. We're making a ridiculous cartoon. Okay, got
Exactly.
it. Now I know how to portray myself here."
So that's our bat rating. When we come to the end of an episode, when we come to the end of a show, we're going to rate something. Obviously, we will call back to what these mean. There's no way that you are expected to remember all of this because we don't even remember it. But if it's a Conroy, it's amazing. If it's a Keaton, it's great. If it's a Bale, it's good. Pattinson is okay. Batfleck is fair. Kilmer is forgettable. West is so bad it's good. And Clooney is just bad.
Just bad. And I don't know how where's just thinking about movies as we were putting this list together. I don't even know where some of them would fall. Like and even thinking about the way that I used to feel about some, I may come back and be like, I don't know what I don't know what I was thinking, but this is not good. Or
Yeah.
find a new appreciation
Or, hey, this is flawless and I was wrong for years.
yeah. Now, I hope for some of that change with you because there was some, but again, I may be looking at some of these movies with a little bit too much through a nostalgia lens, and we'll get to
Maybe.
that stuff.
And honestly, that's our tension. Like, how do we review these in a accurate way, in a biased way, because these films hit us in certain ways at certain points within our lives, but also how do we accurately represent the source material that these things are pulling from? Because they're not just random creations. Sometimes they are, but a lot of times they're pulling from comics and years of legacy story being
Mhm.
told, and you're getting a snapshot of something that's shoved into a 2-hour representation of that thing. So how do you react to that? That's really the challenge.
Yeah, that's a big challenge, and for me, the biggest challenge is being fair to
Mm,
being fair to the audience and being fair to the movie, and not just saying I went into this not liking it, but being able to see like oh the acting is really good, or this story has really good story beats. But on the flip side of that, admitting in the beginning that like, listen, I'm gonna be very forgiving about this particular thing, but I can recognize how other people would see that these things are terrible.
exactly.
And what we there are definitely things on the list that's gonna fall under.
For sure. Now, obviously there's the films that come out, there's the TV shows, there's the short, specials that come out on these platforms that we're all viewing on. What are some things that are coming up within the next, let's say the next year, that we know that are on the docket that have you excited for where comics and comic book culture is headed?
I gotta say, probably the two things I'm probably most excited about, and as of this recording, there's been 2 episodes released of Agatha All Along, which is the follow up to WandaVision about Agatha Harkness and her story of the Witch's Road. Now, I've always loved the supernatural thing. I always loved when there's the occult is involved and that kind of thing, and so. I haven't been I haven't looked forward to a Marvel project like this one in quite a while. So I'm excited to see where they go for that character and what kind of things they might tie in. The other thing for me that I think is going to be really cool is the Creature Commandos, which will be the first installation of James Gunn taking over the DC universe. Now I know he kind of did with the Suicide Squad, and that was his baby that had, his, markings all over it. But I think that for him, that was kind of wrapping up the old universe and kind of setting the scene for his vision. The one thing I think is great is Viola Davis coming back as Amanda Waller.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
she's gonna be doing the voice. It's an animated joint, so she's gonna be doing the voice. But to me, Viola Davis is kind of like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. There's been three different X-Men universes, and he's been Wolverine in all of them. We've
Yep,
got two Suicide Squad movies, and then kind of an offshoot. She's the constant, and should always be the constant. Whoever takes over, whatever cast changes they may make to the other characters, she should always be Amanda Waller. For me, anyway. Yeah.
that's fantastic. I'm excited for a couple things. I think James Gunn does good work.
Hmm.
Period. The end. With him at the helm of DC, I am looking forward to the Superman movie coming out in 2025. I've always liked the fresh approach that people take, knowing that the anchor is always Christopher Reeve,
Hmm.
right? Like, you're never going to top that. And what I like is that I don't feel anyone who's approached this, whether it's Smallville, whether it's Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, even the Justice League, I don't feel like anybody has tried to top what Reeve has done. They've always just expanded, they've gone left, they've gone right, but they've never said, we're going to recreate what Reeve did.
Yeah.
And in a way that honors him as a person, but it also honors the character. And so I'm interested to see where Gunn is going to take this one. To your shirt, this isn't comics, but I'm really excited for Stranger Things wrapping up whenever they decide they're going to
Yeah,
do it.
that's going to be
At this,
great.
at this point, it's like, all right, these kids that were 8 when we started are now old enough to drink and drive, but whatever. We got to land this plane at some point. So I'm excited to see where Stranger Things sort of, puts that finale. And from a Marvel perspective, we can't not talk about the fact that Robert Downey Jr. is now Doctor Doom.
I'm not excited for that.
I'm not going to say I'm not excited. What I will say is I'm excited to see where they think they've been taking us this entire time. And what I mean by that is I think a lot of times we're like, well, Marvel's just playing it by the seat of their pants. I firmly don't believe that they do that. I firmly believe that Feige sort of storyboards all of this. He's got an idea. He knows where he wants to bring it. And some of the projects crash and burn. Others actually float. But it's all headed towards this thing. And I have to believe that their multiverse saga is attempting to be the Infinity Saga as far as direction. I personally don't see it right now. I don't get it. I don't like much that's come out. I don't understand where they're headed. But I know they're headed somewhere. So I'm excited to see where that develops.
I don't know that that's entirely true about the current state of it, only because, you had Jonathan Majors playing Kang, and then there
That's
were
true.
some sketchy things that went on, and now they had to pivot because, Kang the Conqueror was supposed to be the new Thanos, the new big bad.
Right.
And I think that they realized, okay, we have this huge issue now with Jonathan Majors, and we also have, had some big missteps with the Marvel series and with the last couple of movies. What do we do to bring people back in? And I feel like casting Robert Downey Jr. as a Doom variant, or
The
or
Hail
or
Mary.
as a Tony Stark variant, which has happened in the comics where Tony Stark becomes Doom.
Sure.
I just feel like it's a this is how we bring people back in, because everybody loves him. Who doesn't like him? Who doesn't like seeing him in a movie? Who doesn't like seeing him in a superhero movie? And we'll just put him in a different suit of armor. We'll just put him in a different metal
Right.
suit and make him a bad guy. It just feels like now they might have a direction now that they're working towards, but I think this was a panic move to bring people back in.
And it might be, and quite honestly, I'll go on record saying it probably is. However, with the directors, the Russo brothers, and Robert Downey Jr., even if it is a panic move, I believe the product will still be good.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm not necessarily like, oh, yeah, no, they knew it all along and blah, blah, blah. No, they had to pivot, and you're absolutely right. But given the players that they're now playing chess with, I believe that we will finally get another end game like satisfying story.
I hope so. I hope so. I don't know if it will reach the heights that Endgame did with satisfying 10 years
True.
of, individual and team-based storytelling. But
Yep.
I'm happy to be pleasantly surprised, and I'm happy to be proven
Happy to be
wrong.
wrong.
I hope for the best, because you started so strong. Everybody gets weird in the
Yep.
middle. Let's see if we can end strong. And that would be
Yeah. Can
great.
we land the plane?
I would love
Yep.
to see that. And I think seeing this version of Doom with the new Fantastic Four that they announced, I think could be really cool if they, keep that kind of like 60s, first
Yeah.
family of Marvel kind of vibe. I think could be really cool. So I'm willing to give it a shot. It feels like a panic move, and it's like we don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Get Robert on the phone.
Call the Russos. They'll save it. But anyway, that's sort of our welcome. That's what we got for what you're getting into. When you join us on a Sanctum Sanctorum episode, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about a movie or some geek culture aspect. We are talking about the good things of it, the bad things of it, the spiritual stuff of it, and then how does that impact us? How do we then take some of this stuff and then go and live this out as geeks for God?
And
That was terrible.
one thing,
we shouldn't say that.
maybe rethink that little outro there. But one of the things
Geeks for God.
Geeks for God. This is like Jews for Jesus, or
Yeah.
Campus Crusades. You need that alliteration for every kind of churchy thing.
Go slay some people in the name of comics.
One thing we did forget to mention is another aspect of the show we like to do is we'll have some kind of comic book culture thing that we like to talk about. Something about the comic industry or comic book movies and how they're relating to what's going on in society, what's going on in culture. And that could be something faith-based, could be something social, it could be just we never thought about this, and I wonder why they do this or make that decision. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear your opinion on all this stuff. Did you agree with how we, rated this movie with the good and the bad things that we talked about? Did you agree that this was even a movie we should cover? Do you have ideas about what you want to see us cover based on, how you feel about us? We want to hear all that stuff. And we have a couple of ways that you'll be able to do that. We are going to be on YouTube. Obviously, the show, will be on YouTube, and you can follow us and comment there at the Sanctum Sanctorum Pod. And feel free to comment, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, all that stuff. We are on Facebook at the Sanctum Sanctorum Podcast. Again, it'll be a great place to interact with us. It'll be a great place to share your thoughts. Don't hold back. We can take it. We're big geeks. And because we're geeks, we know what it's like to have people not agree with our opinion of what's cool. And then lastly, we're also on Instagram at the Sanctum Podcast, and that'll be a great place to get upcoming news, upcoming previews of episodes that we're going to have coming out, and just a great place to interact with us. And we want to be able to do that.
So, again, thank you so much for watching this welcome episode. We're excited for the movies that we're going to cover, the disagreements we're going to have, where we're actually going to find commonality, and finding Christ in our comic culture. So, again, thanks so much. We will see you on episode 1.
All right. See you then.